Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we are looking at something truly fascinating. We often tend to think that groundbreaking scientific discoveries only happen in these high-tech, pristine laboratories with massive teams of researchers planning things out for decades. But today, we're looking at the exact opposite. We're going to explore how four incredibly mundane, totally routine tasks, I'm talking things like digging a well or just casting a fishing net, accidentally led to world-altering scientific discoveries. These are those wild moments when everyday life unexpectedly collided with profound ancient secrets.
So I really want you to keep this question in the back of your mind as we go through today's explainer. What happens when routine tasks uncover world-altering ancient secrets? Just think about it for a second. You go to work on a Tuesday doing the exact same job you've done for 20 years, and suddenly you're holding a piece of history that completely shatters our understanding of human evolution or ancient engineering. That is the unbelievable mystery we are diving into today. And I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to be looking at your own backyard just a little bit differently.
Okay, let's dive straight into Section 1, the Great Lakes Hunters, a mystery in the depths. Our first story takes us to the freezing, incredibly deep waters of Lake Michigan. The year is 2007, and archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley was out on a totally standard mission. He was using sonar technology to scan the lake bed, simply looking for the wreck of an old ship that had been lost for years. Standard stuff, right? But instead of the wooden ribs of a sunken boat, his sonar pinged something that seemed impossible. He actually suited up in his scuba gear, jumped into that freezing water, and found a perfectly straight, mile-long line of massive stones sitting right on the flat, sandy lake bed. And at the end of this line, a perfect circle of stones resting right next to a deep underwater trench. Honestly, it was like finding a mini Stonehenge perfectly preserved underwater. Well, as you can probably imagine, when the news broke, the media went absolutely wild. They immediately rushed to these grand spiritual conclusions, claiming this was some 10,000-year-old religious site, thousands of years older than the actual Stonehenge. But true science requires patience and method. An anthropologist named John O'Shea applied rigorous scientific inquiry to the site, and he eventually published research showing he had found identical stone lines about 300 kilometers away in Lake Huron. This wasn't magic, and it wasn't religion. It was an incredibly ingenious survival tool known as a driveline. This brilliantly illustrates how ancient humans survived and adapted. See, native hunters thousands of years ago observed a really quirky instinct in the caribou they hunted. The animals naturally love to walk alongside straight lines, so the hunters simply manually built these mile-long stone paths. The caribou would blindly follow the straight line right into that circular pit at the very end. The hunters would hide behind the circle, and that deep underwater trench we mentioned earlier, that prevented the animals from escaping forward. It was a perfectly engineered trap utilizing natural behavior hidden perfectly by time and water. Moving right along to Section 2, Deep Water Secrets, the Mediterranean Anomaly. Let's jump from the lakes of North America over to the vast Mediterranean Sea. It's 2023, and a British oil company is running a totally routine gas survey about 55 miles off the coast of Israel. Now, they are surveying at an extreme, crushing depth of 1 mile below the surface. They sent an advanced robotic vehicle down, literally just expecting to take standard pictures of sand and rocks. But suddenly, the engineers noticed this bizarre mound popping up on their screens. It definitely wasn't a natural rock formation. It was a massive pile of hundreds of ancient clay pots piled right on top of each other. They immediately called up the Israeli Antiquities Authority, who brought in some absolutely incredible modern science. They utilized a technique called robotic archaeology. You see, at 1 mile deep, the water pressure is so intense it would crush a human diver instantly. So they used specialized robotic vehicles equipped with incredibly delicate manipulators. These robots carefully lifted the fragile, ancient clay jars out of the crushing depths and brought them safely to the surface. And inside those jars, researchers actually found remnants of ancient agricultural products, like olive oil and wine. But the real shock came when the robotic scanners peered underneath that massive pile of pots. Buried right there in the sand was the unmistakable outline of a 40-foot ship. And when they tested the artifacts, they were absolutely stunned. This wasn't some shipwreck from a couple of centuries ago. This shipwreck was 3,300 years old. That officially makes it the oldest deep-water shipwreck ever discovered in human history. So, how do we actually know that exact age? Well, researchers used carbon dating. It's an absolutely crucial scientific method. Basically, it analyzes the decay of carbon isotopes left behind in organic materials. See, carbon decays at a known constant rate, kind of like a natural clock ticking away. By measuring what was left in the remnants of that ancient olive oil and wine, scientists could pinpoint a staggering exact timeline. And honestly, the dates they got back completely shattered our previous historical timelines.
Finding a ship this old, out this far in the deep sea, completely rewrites the history books. The Mediterranean is huge. We're talking 1 million square miles, and it is notorious for incredibly dangerous weather. To survive those extreme conditions so far away from the coastline, it proves that 3,000-year-old sailors were far more advanced than we ever gave them credit for. They didn't have modern GPS, obviously. Instead, they relied on highly advanced navigation techniques, reading environmental clues, the stars, and the sun to cross that massive, treacherous sea.
All right, let's head into Section 3, the fish that defied extinction, an alien in the net. For this one, we're heading to a cold morning in December 1938. A South African fisherman is just heading out for his daily catch. But what he pulls up in his net is about to turn the scientific world completely upside down. When he finally showed his catch to the experts, they literally couldn't believe their eyes. They were looking at a coelacanth. Based on radiometric dating of fossils found back in 19th century Europe, scientists knew this specific fish originated about 400 million years ago. And crucially, it had completely vanished from the fossil record 65 million years ago, right alongside the T-Rex during that massive asteroid impact. Science had definitively declared it extinct. Yet here it was, pulled up alive and well in a modern fishing net. What makes this fish so absolutely crucial to science is its anatomy. Normal fish, as we know them, have delicate, flexible fins meant strictly for swimming. But the coelacanth, it's basically an alien. Its 4 fins are actually made of dense flesh and real bone. And when it moves them in the water, it alternates them exactly like a horse walking on land. This makes the coelacanth a living tetrapod. It's a critical biological bridge right in the middle of the evolutionary gap between swimming in the ocean and walking on land. And the biology of this creature is just mind-blowing. First off, it has a massive 5-foot glowing blue body. It's also the only living creature with a specific hinge joint in its skull that allows it to lift its upper jaw completely to swallow huge prey. And because it lives down in pitch-black deep water, it doesn't really need to see. Instead, it has this rostral organ that acts like a built-in metal detector, sensing the faint electrical waves given off by other fish. Oh, and get this, 99% of its skull is filled with pure fat. That's to protect its tiny 1% brain from the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. Plus, unlike most fish that lay eggs, the coelacanth actually gives birth to live young. It is a literal prehistoric marvel, found purely by accident.
And that brings us to Section 4, Unearthing the Terracotta Army. A shovel's echo. We moved to the year 1974 to a small village called Zhaoyang in China. Desperate farmers were trying to dig a new well to save their drying crops. They had been digging out there for 3 days straight. About 15 feet down, a farmer named Yang Shafa drove his shovel into the earth and heard a sharp, echoing clack. As he carefully brushed away the dirt, a genuinely chilling sight emerged, a life-sized clay head with staring eyes looking right back up at him. The villagers were terrified, believing they had unearthed a terrible, bad omen from the underworld. But once the government was notified, they launched a massive, rigorous scientific excavation.
What they discovered beneath that farmer's field is widely considered one of the greatest archaeological finds of all time. They didn't just find one statue, they found an entire army. Over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers were buried in the earth. And here is the most unbelievable part of the whole thing. Out of those 8,000 statues, no 2 are exactly alike. They each have entirely unique facial features, distinct hairstyles, varying uniforms indicating different military ranks, and they were even holding real, lethal brass weapons. The scientific community quickly realized they had found the legendary immortal army of Qin Shi Huang, the very first emperor of China. He commissioned this unbelievable undertaking to guard his tomb and protect him in the afterlife. The historical magnitude of this discovery is hard to overstate. It completely redefined our understanding of ancient Chinese art, military organization, and imperial power. But, it is worth impartially noting the tragic outcome for the farmers who actually made the discovery. The government claimed the land to build a massive museum, and the farmers sadly lost their village and their livelihoods in the process.
And that brings us to the end of our journey today. We've seen how a lost sonar ping found ancient hunting grounds, how a routine oil survey revealed master navigators, how a daily catch proved an extinct creature was very much alive, and how digging a well uncovered an emperor's immortal army. It leaves us with this final thrilling thought. If a farmer's shovel or a fisherman's net can completely rewrite history, what else is hiding right beneath our feet, just waiting for the next accidental strike of a spade? Thank you so much for learning with me today on the